Hello, I'd like to welcome you to Safety Culture. What I'm doing is I'm trying to help construction workers better understand what's all involved in the safety process. I've been involved with trades since 1987. I started off as a Boilermaker. I have over 25 years as a tradesman. I'm also a teacher, a trade instructor. I've been doing that for over 14 years. I've been a safety officer for over 3. I know I don't look that old, but I've been doing certain things overlapping, so I'm not really that old. Anyway, I was summer holidays here in beautiful Manitoba, southern Manitoba. It's about 28 above. For the American people, it's about 80-ish. And as you know, we only have 2 seasons in Canada. We have hockey season and construction. And so we happen to be in the beautiful sunny construction season. I was thinking about, I'm getting to the stage now where I'm looking at possible retirement, not too long from now, maybe semi-retirement. And I was thinking of all the people who I'd worked with, and a lot of them never really were able to enjoy their retirement. Either they died prematurely, or they had sicknesses and required many surgeries and medicine. And I think a lot of those could have been prevented. And when I started off in 1987, what we had is we had what's called a generic WHMIS. We had a basic PPE, we had a generic WHMIS, and we didn't have safety officers. Your supervisors were in charge of safety, and let's face it, they are quite busy. They're very overworked. And so what happened is that the next phase of my construction is that the workers thought that the safety officers only had 2 faults: what they did and what they said. Well, the safety officers thought that if no one works, no one gets hurt. Well, you know, the company actually does want to have somebody work and get some things accomplished. It's very nice to see that a lot of the companies have a very good understanding and relationship, both with the management and the workers. It's getting a lot better, and that's wonderful. What is safety? Safety can be defined to be the control of recognized hazards to achieve an acceptable level of risk. This can take the form of being protected from the event or from the exposure to something that causes health or economical losses. It can also include protection of people and or possessions. What I'm doing now is, being a teacher, I want to make sure that what I'm saying is clear and understood, and I don't want to miss any points. So please excuse the fact I don't have this memorized. If I try to memorize it, I'd have a line or 2 out of place, and I don't want that. Risks and responsibilities. What are risks and responsibilities? Safety is generally interpreted as implying a real and significant impact on risk of death, injury, or damage to property. In response to perceived risks, many interventions may be proposed, with engineering responses and regulation being 2 of the most common. Canadian classifications. In Canada, hazards are typically categorized into one of 6 groups. 1, safety, which is moving machinery, working at heights, slippery surfaces, mobile equipment, etc. Number 2, ergonomics, which is material handling, environment, and work organizations. Number 3, chemical agents. Number 4, biological agents. Number 5, physical agents, which are noise, lighting, radiation, etc. Number 6 is psychological, which is stress and violence. Facts to consider in safety. Workers do have rights, and I'm sure everybody knows that by now. But what the workers' rights are, they're known as the 3 R's. There's actually 4, but I'd like to just state what they are to make sure everybody has them right. Workers in Manitoba have basic occupational safety and health rights that enable them to exercise their responsibility to work in a safe and healthy manner. These rights are: 1, the right to know about what hazards there are in the workplace and what precautions must be taken to prevent injuries and illnesses. The second right is to participate in safety and health activities in the workplace without fear of any forms of disciplinary action, such as discipline itself. The right to refuse work that might be they reasonably believe can be dangerous to themselves and others. And number 4, the right to protection from disciplinary actions or discrimination for exercising their rights or responsibility to work in a safe and healthy manner. That's very important, because what happens is that I've seen in the past where people have actually had issues and been frowned upon, And if you were kind of weeding out the crew and you have to lay some people off, quite often the so-called bad seed is let go. And they're not bad seed, they're actually very helpful, and you should be thankful that they actually are saying things. I'd like to talk about due diligence for a second. The legislation can't cover everything that can happen on the job. Sometimes you must take measures to protect your employees and service providers that go beyond legislation. Due diligence means everyone with responsibility for safety and health must take every precaution reasonable in the circumstances to avoid a work-related injury or illness. This concept of reasonable care holds individuals accountable for their acts, what they do, and omissions, what they failed to do. If you see something that is wrong, especially if it's dangerous, deal with it right there. If you can actually get your supervisor and they can deal with it, that's fine too. It goes far beyond simple regulatory compliance. Due diligence describes a very high standard, take reasonable care, and is reflected in the following principles. General duties. The Act imposes a duty on everyone in the workplace to take reasonable care of their safety and health and that of others to the degree that they have the knowledge, authority, and the ability to do so. The general duty is in addition to the goes on beyond merely complying with the law. B, regulatory compliance. If you are charged with contravening the legislation, you cannot successfully defend yourself by saying that you did not intend to break the law or fail to comply. You know, ignorance is no excuse, seriously. I mean, we all know what's right and what's wrong. To defend yourself adequately, you must be able to show that you took every reasonable, practicable action to comply. C, reasonably practicable. Easy for me to say, reasonably practicable. What is that? It is determined by asking what a reasonable person in the same position and circumstance would have done to prevent the incident. When making that determination, three main factors need to be taken into account. 1, foreseeability, 2, preventability, and 3, control. We want to be proactive, not reactive. Due diligence requires you to take a proactive and systematic approach to safety and health. This can best be met within a workplace by establishing, implementing, and maintaining a safety and health system that identifies hazards, assesses the risks associated with these hazards, implements measures to eliminate or minimize those risks, monitors each part of the system to ensure it is adequate and effective. Supervisors' responsibilities are to, I have 12 of these, promote safety awareness. 2, establish safe work practices and procedures. 3, instruct workers the safe way. 4, enforce safe behavior. 5, detect troubled employees. 6, correct unsafe conditions. 7, inspect for hazards. 8, enforce the safety rules. These are all supervisors' responsibilities. Number 9, ensure proper maintenance. 10, investigate all incidents. You have to make sure you know everything that happens, is because it might seem minor at the time, but what happens is it's always a percentage thing. X number of minors goes to a medium, and then it becomes a hardcore injury or death. Number 11, comply with regulations. And 12, set a good example. I'd like to discuss the workers' responsibilities as well. There's only 8 of these. Hey, how come the supervisors have 12 and the workers only have 8? Anyway, number 1 is follow safe work practices. Number 2, report unsafe conditions. Number 3, report unsafe practices. Number 4, correct unsafe conditions, practices. Number 5, comply with rules and regulations. 6, report any injury, any and all injury, be it a sliver, hangnail you pulled off, a little scratch. You never know what's going to happen. You know, unfortunately, sometimes these things manifest to something worse. Number 7, make safety suggestions. We expect you to get involved. If you can see that there is a problem, please bring it to our attention. I'm a safety officer, and I do appreciate that. I'm not going to use it against you. As a matter of fact, what the really good companies are doing is actually rewarding people who make suggestions. Number 8, for the workers' responsibilities, is set a good example. Here's a example of a company safety policy. I'm going to read directly from them. This is actually from the Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, so I'll give them credit. This company is committed to preventing the accidental loss of any of its resources, including employees and physical assets. In fulfilling its commitment to protect both people, and property, management will provide and maintain a safe and healthy work environment in accordance with industry standards and compliance with legislative requirements, and will strive to eliminate any foreseeable hazards which may result in property damage, accidents, or personal injury or illness. This company recognizes the right of workers to work in a safe and healthy work environment, and will work in consultation, cooperation with workers in an effort to establish a process in which is in everyone's best interest. All employees will be equally responsible for minimizing accidents within our facilities. Safe work practices and procedures will be clearly defined in the company safety manual for all employees to follow. Accidental loss can be controlled through good management in combination with active employee involvement. Safety is the direct responsibility of all managers, supervisors, and employees. All management activities will comply with company safety requirements as they relate to the planning, operation, and maintenance of facilities and equipment. All employees will perform their jobs properly in accordance with established procedures and safe work practices. I trust that all of you will join me in a personal commitment to make safety a way of life. What happens is you'll sign this and you'll date this when you get hired on in most companies. I'd like to thank the Safety Association of Saskatchewan for that. I was working in Regina at the Co-op Upgrader, and I had the privilege of talking with the head man, Bud Eiderstein. And Bud told me that I could use these if I gave Co-op the CCRL credit, and I'd like to do that. Thank you, Bud. This is what they put together. CCRL core principles. It's not very long, but very effective. The manager of Consumers Cooperative Refineries Limited is totally committed to 4 core principles that are always to take priority over production. Always take priority over production, please. These core principles in order of priority are to: 1, ensure the safety of all personnel and the public at large. 2, to ensure that all equipment is of high integrity and is maintained and operated to mitigate safety risks. 3, ensure that the management of environmental affairs and responsible stewardship is always at the highest level. And finally, number 4, ensure that quality products and services are provided by all CCRL work groups. Bud signed it, he dated it. So right from the top of the corporation, right to workers, they all know that there's a commitment and they are all accountable and responsible for their actions. I'd like to talk about hazard assessments in the next segment, please. And so we'll go there. Hello, I'd like to talk about hazard assessment. And hazard assessment is very important. As you know, that's the work site. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to control and eliminate any possible scenarios which are negative. And slip, trips, and falls are, of course, some of the biggest concerns, falling from ladders. Quite often, a lot of these situations can actually be eliminated by doing a proper hazard assessment. Let's just discuss this for a little while. What is a hazard assessment? It is an objective process for the examination of possible losses resulting from workplace hazards, changing conditions, or system failures. This type of loss might be one of human, equipment, or material. The probability of loss occurring then logically leads to the institution of controls being introduced into the system. The hazard assessment process is essential for establishing the magnitude of a potential hazard. It involves setting values for impact and the probability of occurrence. Hazard assessment, drawing upon experience and imagination, determines the need to take action or to simply follow an existing procedure. Hazard assessment is used to determine whether a situation or condition is safe, if conditions, situations, or facilities are acceptable, and that the degree of risk is minimized to its lowest common denominator. The process of hazard assessment improves one's basic understanding of how a system or faculty should work, its facility, how it might fail, and what might cause it to fail. Why perform hazard assessments? Aside from the obvious benefits, such as cost-effective production resulting from the elimination of downtime due to incidents, there is also a legal aspect that has to be considered. The Saskatchewan Labour Occupational and Safety OH&S Act and complying regulations clearly outline the need for assessment of the potential for hazards at the workplace. Every state and province has their own different laws, so I'm not trying to tell you exactly how it's going to work where you are, but please inquire about that. The OH&S Act in Saskatchewan assigns the following responsibilities to an employer: that as far as is reasonably practicable, what happens is they actually expect you to go as far as you can without losing your business. That's what they're looking for. That as far as is reasonably practicable for them to do so, the employer will ensure the health and safety of their own workers as well as other workers that may be affected by their work processes. And B, that their own workers are aware of the responsibilities and duties under the OH&S Act and regulations. Employers must ensure that the workers are competent to handle the work assignments. Competent, as defined by OH&S, means suitably trained, adequately qualified, and with sufficient experience to carry out the work. The regulations emphasize the need for the training and qualifying of the worker's ability once a work procedure or process has been developed. Hazard assessment. Hazard analysis or hazard assessment is a process in which individual hazards of the workplace are identified, assessed, and controlled, eliminated as close to the source, location of the hazard as reasonable as possible. As technology, resources, and social expectation or regulatory requirements change, hazard analysis focuses controls more closely towards the source of the hazard. Thus, hazard control is a dynamic program of prevention. Hazard-based programs also have the advantage of not assigning or implying risks, but neither does it affect satisfactory but still risk outcomes. And as those who calculate and manage the risk are usually managers, while those exposed to the risks are a different group, workers, a hazard-based approach can bypass conflict inherent in a risk-based approach. This assessment I'm talking about in regards to hazard assessment has 4 parts to it: identifying the hazards, identifying all affected by the hazard and how, evaluate and risk. 4, identify and prioritize appropriate control measures. Hazard control. The object of hazard control is to eliminate or minimize to the greatest degree possible the potential for loss and undesired events. Hazard controls alter the course of a hazard and address either the probable or potential impact through preventable or protective measures. Hazard control may be either generic or specific. Generic hazard controls may include safety practices, procedures, training, regulations, and workplace rules. These types of controls are to be applied regardless of the actual presence of a hazard. Specific hazard controls are typically those safeguards which are initiated based on the knowledge of a certain unavoidable hazard being present. Hazards can be defined in 3 areas or degrees of potential impact: high, which is likely to occur and with unacceptable loss potential; secondly, medium, somewhat likely to occur, resulting in a minor loss potential; and 3, low, which might never occur, or if it does, the loss potential would be very minimal. I'd like to discuss developing safe work procedures. In developing safe work procedures, one should understand why people do things that are unsafe. It is usually because they fail to recognize the hazards in that they, A, do not have adequate knowledge or skills to do the job; B, have not received proper instruction; C, do not understand the instruction given; D, have trouble following instruction; E, may have been trained for normal conditions but do not know how to respond to an unusual situation; E, are unaware that the procedure that is being used is incorrect; and finally, do not recognize the importance of working safely. Safe work procedures. Developing the safe work procedures. Safe work procedures must be developed and implemented for the work carried out at the workplace. Here are some things you want to do while doing these. You'll want to use positive language. For example, use words such as ensure and always instead of don't and or never. Summarize the information gathered in your job hazard analysis. Identify the specific job that the procedures applies to. Identify who wrote and or approved the safe work procedures. Identify the original date it was produced. Identify specific hazards that you may encounter while performing the job. Identify personal protective equipment, PPE, or device required to use to perform the job. Describe the step-by-step procedures to perform the task safely. Refer to or describe the steps in the following emergency or during the equipment malfunction. And finally, refer to the guidance documents, standards, or legislation that apply to a specific task. I'd like to discuss safe work procedures, carry on with that. What happens is you're going to have a blank piece of paper, and what it's going to have is going to have job sequence, potential accidents or hazards, recommended site, safe job procedures. And what you're going to do is you're going to have a number of steps involved in that. And so let's take a look at this. We start off with job sequence for lifting heavy objects. 1, plan your lift. 2, when lifting, place yourself in the squat position, facing the object to be lifted. 3, test weight of object. 4, grasp object firmly and straighten up legs to standing position. The second step is going to be potential accidents or hazards that you may be heading. And under that, you're going to have steps. And the steps involved in this is A, slips and falls. B, trips and falls. C, cuts and slivers. D, strains on the back. And you're going to have PPE, which is your personal protective equipment. Recommended safe job procedures. You're going to have many of those, and they can be found on the internet if you actually want to go to Safe Work Procedures, and they have a lot of good information there. Just Google that, Safe Work Procedures. Here's the actual FLRA, which is the Field Level Risk Assessment that is used by a lot of employers. And what they do is they have the steps of activity or task, hazard reaction to change. 3, safe plan. 4, the resources required. You're going to have the work area and the date. You're also going to have all employees sign off on this, and you're going to have your supervisor sign off on this too. You'll want to be doing this on the actual job site. And what are you going to be doing on the backside of the FLRA is you're going to be looking at the permits required PPE. Carrying on, you have fall protection. Your second column on the back is going to be hazards. Things like overhead utilities, crane, or other equipment to be used. The third and last column is your safe plan, and there'll be many different columns on there as well. You'll want to look for the miscellaneous sheets available through your safety association. You'll be more than likely, your company already has those in play. But if you're a new company, you can also just Google that or go to the library. They have all kinds of references there. Finally, I'd like to close the segment off with the helpful hints, tips, if you will, to help make things better. It's not the FLRA that's going to actually save your life. It's the gathering of information that and what it represents that is actually going to be very important to keep you safe. Workers should never be tempted to sign on the bottom of the sheet without first reading and understanding it. The FLRA are legal documents and are often used in incident investigations. Everybody in the workplace should be involved in the FLRA. That includes both the foreman as well as the workers. The more minds, the more years of experience applied to the analysis of the hazards in a job, the more successful the group will be in controlling them. I'd like to thank you for joining me in this safety video. It's very important to me that you all have a good work career, healthy and successful, make a lot of money for your family, enjoy your day, and a great retirement. Thank you. Talk to you later.